Well, cycling in Michigan for me is absolutely wonderful. The rail trails, I think, are the best part, mainly because most of these trails that we have are corridors that have been left alone for many years, are tree lined, and so you do have the ability to ride in shade, you do have the ability to ride out of the wind most of the time, and they're straight and they're flat.
Get out and enjoy them. Invest in a good bike and make the effort to go enjoy it.
Well, in this trail, there were some people even just walking with their kids and had little maps and, you know, observing things, taking pictures. I mean, it really isn't a high-end investment. It's not a lot of high maintenance. It's so easy. You just have to remember that they're here and access them and do it.
It's different than just running on like the highway. You kind of can get away from people. There's nice views. You see farms, barns, different where people live at. And it's kind of cool to see how they're living and that you can kind of run behind there. It's interesting to be in that kind of environment.
It's a nice mix of countryside, open areas of woods and fields that's also punctuated with small towns and villages and buildings along the way that make for an interesting ride.
Try it once, a couple of miles, and they will realize that it is a lot of fun. You don't need to have a fancy bike, just any bike that you can find, and you don't need anything fancy to do that.
We're here at the western anchor of the Lake-to-Lake Trail System in Calhaven, Michigan. The beginning of the trail is at the Calhaven Trailhead that takes you all the way to Port Huron, Michigan, 275 great miles. Once you leave Calhaven, you'll pass through many interesting towns: Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, Jackson, Pinckney, Wixom, Pontiac, Rochester, Richmond, and St. Clair, as well as the anchor town of Port Huron.
You know, in the past we had great railroads for lumbering, you know, and for logging and for fishing and that type of thing, and we're following those old courses that were really old Indian trails, you know, 1,000 years ago.
Driving over here today, we crossed over Pontiac Trail, which has significant history here in Michigan. That was a trail hundreds of years ago that used to be used by Native Americans.
Well, when I was born in 1944, the railroad still used it. And I used to ride my bike up and down, play on it all the time. And eventually they tore up the tracks and it was just a dirt trail. But I still ran on it and walked on it, and thankfully over the years' time they have improved it, so now it's a very beautiful trail.
So there are actually 5 Great Lake to Lake trails statewide, and it was really a movement that started back in 2011 when our former executive director Nancy Kupiars got together a group of, I want to say it was over 100 stakeholders, brought them all together and thought of this idea of having this network of trails that connect one Great Lake to another all throughout the state for people to access.
Many of the trails in Michigan took those old abandoned rail corridors and turned them into active trails, with the potential at some point in the future to return them to transportation use if necessary. So what we have here along the Falling Waters Trail is a perfect example of taking one of those old abandoned railroad corridors and turning it into a non-motorized trail.
And this is just a great way to bring families together, bring communities together, and connect people, connect cities, connect communities. I think it's a great thing.
Trails are at our root as people. Like, as transportation corridors, they were what people used to do and use before cars, and now we're kind of getting back to that. And it's great because it's not only a transportation alternative, it's connecting us to our roots, to our history, how we started, and we're just kind of evolving back to it and embracing it in our day-to-day life.
So the great opportunity that's available to us here in Lake Trail Route 1 is that Amtrak, a lot of their rail service runs almost parallel to this trail. So with that in mind, you have a chance to have a multimedia experience. You can park your car at a rail station, an Amtrak rail station, hop on the trail, hop on the, ride your bike, and then pick up the Amtrak train and head back to your car.
That'd be really nice.
The Amtrak ideas, I never thought of it. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I never thought of it either, because if they have a place to put the bikes and trucks, that would be ideal. I mean, then we could go farther.
They got new cars made by Siemens, and they're going to have the luggage rack, the bike racks built right into the luggage racks. So, yeah, it's going to be really cool.
You know, we do follow some of the old railroad grades, and we do have a partnership now with Amtrak, where let's say you want to go, you know, from South Haven to Kalamazoo, then you can jump on a train. Or you want to go from all the way from South Haven to Port Huron, then you can get on a train and you can come back. So no, it's a great partnership with the railroad, and you can put your bicycle now on that railroad car and come back. So good partnership.
Human spark plugs are vital to trail projects. They provide that burst of energy to bring projects to a successful conclusion. A key spark plug for the Great Lake-to-Lake Trail Route 1 is Mike Levine,
whose vision was to build the Great Lake-to-Lake Trail Route 1 between South Haven and Port Huron. Mike had a passion. He had certainly the resources necessary to help us build the trail, but more than anything else, he made a personal commitment to trails.
My son said to me, "Dad, you can do anything, you invent anything you want. You're never gonna put a trail together." And that's all they have to do was wave a red flag, and they said, "Watch me." And we went ahead and started putting the pieces together, working with MDOT and DNR.
Then we are very fortunate to have people like Paul Yawk.
We have these individual, call them trail champions. But you know, it's just growing. You know, you have Mike Levine, but there's a number of people, like you say, along the way. You know, and you've got Washtenaw County and all the leaders there, and then Livingston County, Oakland County, St. Clair County. And you know, you even have elected officials now, and then community officials. People are realizing the impact. It may be health, it may be recreation, it may be tourism, and it's cultural. So you're pulling a lot of things together.
The Ralph Wilson Foundation has been exceptional throughout Southeast Michigan. We received a $2.8 million grant from them 3 years ago and have leveraged that for additional state money, and have leveraged that for quite a bit of private money as well. So collectively, I think we've spent something like $15 million now in the last 3 years building 7 or 8 different trail projects in Washtenaw County.
On October 17th, 2018, there was an announcement that would have been on Mr. Wilson's 100th birthday, where we made a commitment for $100 million in Southeast Michigan and $100 million in Western New York, focused on our parks and trails. And really, there was 2 main themes associated with that $100 million commitment to the region here in Southeast Michigan. $50 million was set aside for the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Centennial Park, as it's named now, on the riverfront in Detroit. And the other $50 million was set aside for eliminating gaps in trails throughout the region, like here at the Michigan Airline Trail. Beyond that, 20% of both of those figures was pulled aside and set aside for sustainability, to establish endowments to make sure that these investments are not just here when we cut a ribbon, but they're here beyond that for future generations to enjoy. Our funding, we've supported capacity grants for organizations, for trail planning grants, so that segments of that trail, or the trails that we focus more broadly in Southeast Michigan, can be developed into a buildable trail. And then we fund matching grants to support the actual construction of these. And I think there's several examples of that along the Great Lake-to-Lake Trail from end to end. We've provided a capacity grant to the Michigan Trails and Greenway Alliance to do a lot of the work, working with the communities along the way. We funded a trail planning grant and design grant focused on Phase 1 and then ultimately Phase 2 of the Michigan Airline Trail. And then we've provided match funds for each of those to make sure that these can be done in a sustainable way. I think the other piece that also doesn't get highlighted quite as much is we established that endowment that I mentioned for the Trails Grant, or for Trails Maintenance. And one of those grants, the first ever that comes out of that endowment, is for another segment of the Great Lake-to-Lake just down the road here. And that's to bring back to life one of the trails that's about 4 miles in length that hasn't had that investment. It's a segment that connects the West Bloomfield Trail, which is just on the other side of where we're standing today, to the city of Pontiac. And I think that's a really important aspect to highlight. It's not just about building these and cutting a ribbon, but again, making sure that they're maintained and the quality of these assets in our region are made to the highest standard.
You can't really get the trail going without the funds, but you can't operate it without the support of a dedicated group of volunteers. So they've done a great job in terms of organizing cleanup days, going to council meetings and township board meetings and making sure that people, our elected officials, understand how important the trail is to the people in the community. That's a key thing. We've had a number of public hearings that we can count on them to show up and make sure that their voice is being heard as well, because you know, when we're applying for grants and applying for funds and applying for support from the communities, it's important to have the local folks come and say, this is a vitally important thing for us to have.
So trail building is all about resources, but more than anything else, it's about individuals who have stepped up to the plate to help us drive trail building forward.
All it takes sometimes is a spark to get a community excited about things, and then you can write grants, and then you're all of a sudden getting some tax dollars as well. So it starts with an idea, and look what it's become. It's going to be a whole network of trails connecting lakes to lakes. It's going to be great. We're excited.
Let's meet some of the people who have benefited from the Great Lake to Lake Trail Route 1 through better economic development, recreation opportunity, improved health, and safe social connection in this time of COVID.
Those trains, they go across small little towns and like small America, what some people will say. And you will find all kind of like small coffee shops, small bakeries that are mostly run by families, and they put a lot of effort in making their things, so it is very enjoyable to eat and knowing that you're helping a local business.
There's a woman in Stockbridge, you know, which is one of the dying type communities, opened a restaurant in Stockbridge.
As this trail started to get improved, based on the contributions of Mike Levine and the village of Stockbridge and some other folks, we really just started to see an opportunity. This building was sitting here and it was abandoned and had been vandalized, and we just saw, well, wow, if the trail's being improved, we see an opportunity, you know, for the cyclists and the people who are using the trail and exercising and walking. This could be an opportunity for us to put some sort of a business in here.
She says, I'm so excited. I said, what are you excited about? She says, I'm leaving on Friday and I'm opening this restaurant. So I said, where are you opening a restaurant? And she says, Stockbridge. We'll start one. I said, because I knew that the DNR had changed its tone because they had such an expense keeping vandals out of the building. Somebody should live in it and take care of it.
This building was gifted to us in the amount of $1 from my father, who did have the initial vision for this. Our business really is trail dependent, and so far we've been open for about a year. We opened on September 16th, 2019. Our opening day was the inaugural ride of the Great Lake to Lake bike ride from South Haven to Port Huron. It really made sense for us to open on that day because we are so trail dependent. This year has been kind of different with the pandemic and everything. We had anticipated opening in March, for sure by Earth Day, and of course we didn't get to open until June. So we've seen not as much business as we would have liked to, but we are still very, very trail dependent. Probably 50% of our business comes from cyclists and trail users, and so we're very grateful for those folks who are out using the trail. And it makes sense because, you know, even when folks are supposed to be you know, cooped up at home, they can still be outside and properly socially distancing and using the trail and getting some exercise. Mike Levine has had a huge impact on us here. I met him kind of serendipitously. It was by accident. I mentioned to him that I was going to be leaving my current job because I was opening a little business in Stockbridge, and it just happened to be on this trail system named the Mike Levine Lakeland Trail State Park. And at first he was kind of coy. He didn't really acknowledge who he was, and And I gave him my name, and when I told him my name, he said, "Can you please bring me my assistant?" And I thought, who is this guy that he would have a personal assistant? So sure enough, it turned out that I was talking to the one and only Mike Levine, someone who was so instrumental in the success of our business here, and he flattered me as well. He told me that we were the incarnation of why he donated such a substantial amount of money to this trail project. And you know, his vision was that if he contributed funds to the trail, that businesses like ours would pop up, very much like little businesses did when the railroad was coming through, small communities, and I believe that he's right.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
What I'm doing here today is we're going on a bike ride, starting here in Calhaven, in South Haven, at the trailhead, and we're going to be riding into Kalamazoo and staying at a hotel in Kalamazoo for the night and then riding back.
We are camping in South Haven for the weekend, and we were just looking for an activity that would get us outdoors early in the morning, get the blood pumping, and see some of the beauty of Southwest Michigan.
Trail's in fantastic condition, a lot of folks out, and it was great to socialize with our friends.
It was actually busier than I thought it would be.
Yeah. It was busy, but it wasn't congested ever.
Yeah. It was a nice activity for the situation that we're in right now, to at least be outside and get some fresh air, but yeah, not feel crowded.
Look at this family coming up. You see families doing stuff together. And this is just a great way to bring families together, bring communities together, and connect people, connect cities, connect communities. I think it's a great thing.
Well, in this trail, there were some people even just walking with their kids and had little maps and, you know, observing things, taking pictures. I mean, it really isn't a high-end investment. It's not a lot of high maintenance. It's so easy. You just have to remember that they're here and access them and do it. It's definitely a great way to get outdoors and spend some time.
And support it. Support it with you know, your local community, and with state government support funds to go to establish these, because it's kind of a neat part of Michigan.
For me, not living in Michigan, but growing up here, I so appreciate what Michigan has invested in the state, and I even look forward to coming back and retiring here and having the trails and biking available.
I think during COVID, it's definitely helped us like have an activity to do. When you just feel like you've been inside for too long on a trail, you're safe. You can stay away from people at a nice distance, but still say hi and talk to them and see where they've been and what their story is. And yeah, and you can go explore something new that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like the natural aspect. I think with COVID being cooped up, I think the hardest part is not being able to interact with people. And I think it's just something as little as a hi or nice seeing you, I think kind of gets people back up in the spirits, just being able to have those. I know they're small, but not at least something that gives me some substance to know I'm still here and kind of alive and everything.
Especially in the year of COVID, usage is sky high already. We've got counting studies that we've done all across the county, and we're seeing huge numbers, probably double what they were last year, in part due to COVID, but also in the fact that we built 9 miles of trail in the last 2.5 years. So as our individual corridors get built out, we're seeing traffic increasing exponentially.
I think it's actually done really great with Gregory, with having the trail right here and so convenient. And unfortunately, it's probably one of the best things that came out of COVID is the fact that the trails are busier this year than they've ever been since we've lived here.
And I have to say also, as we get older, you know, we are more interested in riding on trails like this where we don't have to ride in the traffic.
Yeah, much safer environment here, being on a trail where we don't have cross traffic or traffic whizzing by us at 35 to 60 miles an hour. So it's safer.
Yep. And some of the trails, you know, take you through nature, so that's always a plus.
Well, I have a progressive form of MS, so my balance is very good. So this helps me actually, because with a bike, you have to like balance and stuff. And I used to do that when I was younger, but then now obviously I don't have as good balance. Yeah. So it helps a lot.
Today with COVID, trails are really unique because We want to get the public outdoors. And the public, they feel safe. They feel safe in the parks. They in particular feel safe on trails.
We came to the trail today because we needed to get out of the house. During the pandemic, we've been kind of cooped up, and this gives us a chance to get out and enjoy ourselves outdoors.
It's the one thing that happens on a day that I can come with Sarah, when all of what I was worried about at home, I leave there.
And days like today, when you had like a hard day at school, really busy day at school or at work, it's nice just to go out and get on your bike, bring your family. In this case, I got my daughter, her friend, and we just had a lot of fun.
Let's look ahead now to the future of Michigan's dynamic trail system.
5 years from now, Michigan will not only be the nation's leading land trail state, we will be the nation's leading water trail state. Right now, we have 4,200 miles of coastal trails surrounding Michigan. We have numerous examples of how inland lakes and rivers and streams can connect those lakes and connect land trails. So you will see 5 years from now an incredible multimedia experience. If you want to go out on trail, you could be on a land trail, you can be on a water trail, and then when you combine that with Amtrak and the incredible transportation opportunities, we have a chance to build a network, an interconnected network of trails.
So it takes significant investment to develop a trail, but that's not where it ends. Ongoing maintenance for years is crucial to keep the life of that trail and keep that trail serving benefits to the community. We have groups like the Fred Meyer Foundation that have invested heavily in endowment to help take care of some of Michigan's trails well into the future. And those endowments are very important to pay for maintenance costs and reconstruction, paving, all of those costs that come. When you think about building a trail, it doesn't end with development. Maintenance is so important. Having partners willing to donate and willing to help fundraise for maintenance is crucial, and also having regular people and trail users get involved in their local trail organization helps make Michigan's trail network much stronger.
We need to make the trails accessible and welcoming for all people in Michigan. That, right, I think is our greatest challenge right now and our greatest opportunity. And when you do that, you make the state stronger. You make it more connected, you build communities that way. So I would say we need to really focus on increasing diversity. That's got to be our mission.
If you are curious to check out a trail but have never done so, I highly encourage you look up a local trailhead, you find a place to park, and just go check it out. You don't have to be doing anything extreme. You don't have to assume that you have to have all the gear and the fastest, coolest bike. Go out there with your family. Just bring them out for a walk. Take your dog if you need to. Check out the nature near you. I think I say that a lot, but really it's amazing because these amenities are right in our backyard. And COVID has really compounded things, and people now being at home more often are looking to explore places near them. And we have all these fantastic trails so close to home. So I encourage people to explore, to get out there, take your kids, take your family, and just go out there and walk, jog, hike, do whatever you want to do, ride your bike, just get out there and enjoy it.
I think the great thing about having the interconnected network is that for as much as a huge asset that the Falling Waters Trail has been to the community, that it's still just a point-to-point. We start here in Jackson, we ride to Concord, and then you ride back. And if you don't want to ride on the road, you'd rather stay on a rail trail or something, that those opportunities tend to come in small chunks. So it's nice that for those people that want to get out for those longer rides, or even for the people that want to actually that want to make a vacation out of it, and we're going to do some bike touring and go from one place to another as a destination, that an interconnected trail system gives you that opportunity that you'd never have.
Trails are all about people. Foundation of trails, people, use of trails involves people. To move Michigan forward, we need more commitment from the passionate people of this state. Michigan is the nation's leading trail state in terms of mileage. To maintain that leadership, we need people to make trails a priority as a land use tool, as a recreation tool, as a society building tool in their community. And we have seen numerous examples around the state where people have come forward and supported local millages. It's not just that, It's also getting people out onto the trails, working as volunteers, supporting trails as important land use tools. We need more of that.
The best trailhead in the world is your own driveway. So pedal over if you can, get over to the trail, and then from that trail you can go and connect to all these other areas, and you can go far, you can stay close. Nobody's telling you to drive 50 miles ride 50 miles on your first ride. You can ride 5 miles. You can ride 3 miles on your first ride.
I love this trail. This is like, we bought our property here just because we wanted to get out into nature, having no idea that they were going to build this trail. And I'm like, wow, what a bonus. Like we're like, oh, I think our property value might go up because of this trail.
Those that are interested in getting more involved with trails can definitely look up Michigan Trails and Greenways Alliance. MichiganTrails.org is our website. They can get involved with being a voice in their local communities, being an advocate for trails, participating in different events statewide. But we really look to embrace like that grassroots level of communities that want to be involved with connecting trails to each other, connecting communities to each other, connecting people to each other. The opportunities are endless. So we welcome people, we encourage local citizens to get involved, embrace their local trail, but then also look us up and see if we can build on that local effort to make it more of like a statewide network, like this Great Lake to Lake Route 1 trail.
Trails connect people together that wouldn't ordinarily connect. When I come here on my bike on a Sunday just for recreation, I meet hundreds of people. Walking in and cycling are the only two sporting things you can do and talk at the same time. You can't play tennis.
I think the best thing that comes out of the trail experience is the ability for everyone to interact and break down the barriers that seem to be limiting our current world. There's no reason why you can't talk to somebody and listen to them and figure out how we can make things better going forward.
So as you've seen and heard, Michigan's trail system, including the Great Lake to Lake trails, welcomes everyone. Come out and have an adventure. Ride, walk, run, or jog. I look forward to seeing you on the trail.